Hi, I'm Glenn Rogers, and this is Biblical Insights. The title of our video today is Jesus, Head of the Church. And this is another video in our series about the different ways that Jesus is described in Scripture. And we've talked about a lot of those so far. I won't mention all of them, but Jesus the Lamb, Jesus the Shepherd, Jesus the Way, Jesus the Life, Jesus the Light. You see, we've talked about lots of different metaphors that describe Jesus, and in doing so, that tell us something about him, about the relationship he has with us, and how he works, what he does for us. And those are very helpful ways of thinking about Jesus. In this one, the metaphor is that Jesus is the head of the church, which is his body. Well, we know it's a metaphor because Jesus was a human being. He was a person. He was a man. And he had a head, right? But he wasn't just a head. And so we have to think in terms of the head as it relates to the body. And then we think also about the body as it relates to the head. And it's a very interesting metaphor that gives us some additional insights into Jesus, into who he was and who he is and what he does for the church and things like that. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. But we're going to begin by reading a text from the Apostle Paul, where he talks about Jesus in a number of different ways, but also about him as the head of the church. The text is from Colossians chapter 1, beginning with verse 15. So we'll be reading from the Simplified New Testament, Colossians 1, beginning with verse 15. Jesus is the visible image of the invisible God. He has authority over all created things, for he is the one who created all things. Everything in heaven and on earth, things that can be seen and those that cannot, including the powerful spiritual beings who exercise authority, were created by Jesus to serve him. He existed before anything else, and it is through his power that all other things continue to exist. Jesus is the head of the body, the church. He was the first one to be brought back from life, never to die again, so he could take his place above all the things that he created. Okay, so of all the other things that that Paul says there in that passage about Jesus, and in some other text or some other video, we'll talk about those other things that Paul has to say. But in this video, we want to focus on the fact that Paul said Jesus is the head of the body, which is the church. So there's two metaphors going on here, one about Jesus, who is the head, and another about the church, which is the body. Okay, now I'm a member of the church, and if you're a Christian, you're a member of the church, and you're part, metaphorically, of the body of Christ. Okay, and so that teaches us something about us and the kinds of things we do and how we interact and all of that. But what we're going to focus on is the other metaphor about Jesus as the head of the body. What does that mean? Well, it's really not that complicated if you stop and think about yourself. You know, you're a person that has a body, and part of that body is your head, right? And we know that the brain is in the head, and that it is kind of like the central processing center that controls a lot of the bodily functions. It sends out signals, right? And so if my brain says, okay, right hand, I want you to scratch my head, okay, then my right hand goes up here and I scratch my head, right? If my brain says left hand, I want you to rub, the right shoulder, then my left hand reaches up here, and rubs the right shoulder. And, if the brain tells the left foot to kick something, then the left foot will stretch out and kick. Can't see that right now. I'm kicking under my desk. But you see, the brain is the one that controls the body, that tells the body what to do, and the body responds by doing that. Now, that's an important lesson for us to learn. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about here in a moment. But a lot of these metaphors are easy to understand if we just stop a moment and think. What we need to be careful about, and I've mentioned this in several videos, is not to think in terms of literal applications. Jesus isn't literally a head. Okay, he was a human being who died to save us from the consequences of our sin, and he functions as the head of the church, but he isn't literally a head, and the church isn't literally a body. So we need to avoid that kind of literal thinking that would get us into a situation where we couldn't make sense out of anything, you see. So we need to avoid that. But what does it mean for us that Jesus is the head of the church? How do we apply that? How do we understand that? Well, there's three things that I want us to think about in relationship to all of this, and see what we can learn. And the first one is the word I just used, relationship, right? Because Jesus is the head of the church, and we are part of the body, which is the church, then there is a relationship between the head and the body, right? And so because you're part of the body, maybe you're equivalent to a little finger, right? Or maybe you're the nose or the ear, right? Or the eye. Maybe you're the spleen or the stomach. Now, I'm just being silly now, but, the illustration is of the human body, right? And so we know that there are different parts of the human body, and all of those parts have a relationship with each other and with the head, right? So the first thing that we learn from the illustration or the metaphor of Jesus as the head of the church is that there's a relationship involved. And if you're the little finger on either hand, you're a little finger, or you're a thumb. Okay, thumbs are very important. Can't do much without our thumbs, right? You have a relationship with the head. But how does that relationship work? Is the thumb and the head equal? Well, thumbs are pretty important, but the thumb doesn't tell the head what to do. The head tells the thumb what to do, doesn't it? Right? And so if you're the hand, okay, the hand doesn't tell the brain what to do. The brain tells the hand what to do. Okay? So there's a relationship, but it's not a relationship of equals. The head is in charge. The head has a different role than the hand or the little finger or the thumb or whatever. So there's a relationship, but it's not a relationship of equals. Okay, there's something different there about that relationship. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Okay, but let's think about the importance of the relationship in general. Okay, human beings are relational beings. That's part of our nature. Okay, we need relationships. We were designed for relationships. In fact, the reason that God made us in His image was so that we could enjoy a relationship with Him. You see, relationship requires a certain level of sameness. My wife and I really, really love dogs. We have two dogs. One is named Worf, and the other is named Emma. And we love them just as if they were our children. And we take them places, and we buy them toys, and we treat them in many respects like they were our children. And we have a good relationship with them. But the thing is, no matter how much we love them, no matter how well we treat them, and no matter how much they love us back, as dogs can love, their people, it's not the same kind of relationship that I have with my wife. And no one can have the same kind of relationship with an animal, any animal, that they can have with another human being. Why? Well, because humans and animals aren't the same. You see, to have a very, very close, intimate relationship requires a level of sameness. And so the reason God created us in his image, which means we're basically the same kind of beings he is. Now, we're not as powerful he is, and we're embodied in a physical body, and he's not. So there are some important differences. But fundamentally, he's a thinking being, we're thinking beings. He has always lived. Even though we didn't always exist, we came into existence. We will always exist in the future. We will never not exist any longer. We will always exist, you see. And we're rational like he's rational. We are emotive like he is emotive. We're self-determined like he's self-determined. There's a lot of things about us that's just like God. And he did that on purpose so that he and we could enjoy a mutually satisfying relationship. Okay, and that's why we're like God. That's why he created us in his image. And so we have a relationship with the head of the body. We're in the body, we're part of the body, and Jesus is the head of the body. So there's a relationship there. And so it's a wonderful relationship, a helpful relationship, one that gives us many, many advantages that we wouldn't otherwise have. So that's one of the things we learn. We learn about relationship, because the head of the body has a relationship with the body, and vice versa. The second thing, and this is what I was talking about before, and I want to go back to that, is this idea of authority. The thumb on the hand is important. It does a lot of important stuff. If I need to push a button, usually I'll push it with my thumb, right? If I need to pick up something, having that thumb there to help me grab onto it, pick it up, that's very helpful. Thumb is a very important thing. But the thumb, even though it's important, it doesn't tell the head. The head tells the thumb, right? The body as a whole, even though it's very important, the body doesn't control the head controls the body. So there's an authority involved here. And Jesus, excuse me, has authority over the body because he's Jesus. And as we learned from that text we read, that Jesus created everything. He's the visible image of the invisible God. If you want to know what God is like, look at Jesus. You want to know how God would live if he were a human being? Look at Jesus, right? Because Jesus was God living among us as a human being, showing us how to live. And because he's God, he's in charge. He has all authority, right? And Jesus said that to his disciples before he ascended back in his heaven. He said, all authority has been given to me. All authority in heaven and on earth. Jesus is in charge of everything. He's the Lord. The Lord, as we have said in one of our other videos, of all other lords and the King of all other kings, he is in charge. He has the ultimate authority. And that's important for us to recognize. All right? Everybody isn't equally in charge. This whole idea of equality, that's an important concept. It's very important to us here in America. A lot of my listeners, I know, are in Africa and in India, and you may think a little bit differently about equality than we do here in America. I'm not sure there's exactly one right way to think about it, but as I have studied and written about equality, there are different kinds, at least two different kinds. There's intrinsic equality, which has to do with worth or value. And, one of our important documents here in the United States is our Declaration of Independence, along with our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. And it makes reference in there to the fact that all men are created equal. All people are created equal. Well, what it means is because we're human beings, we all have the same intrinsic value. We have a worth simply because we're human beings created in God's image. And nobody is worth more than anybody else. You see, so we're equal in that sense. But we have a different kind of equality when we begin to think about the situation that we're in. Okay? I'm older than some of you. Some of you are younger and stronger and faster than me, because I'm not so strong and so fast anymore. I have a pretty good education. Some other people, not so much. Some people are really handsome, really good looking, and then some, not so much. Some people are extremely intelligent, and other people, they're just kind of average, right? Some people are very charismatic, and they're great leaders, and people follow them, and other people, no, not so much, right? We're all different. And those differences impact how we live and how we work and the kinds of things we can do and the kinds of things we can't do. No two people situationally are exactly the same. In that sense, there's not an equality. If you think of equality as sameness, well, then we're not all equal as far as our situation in life, right? We're not. Children, they don't have the same kind of power and authority that adults have, right? And we, as part of the body, do not have the same kind of power and authority as the head of the body. Jesus has authority. He has all of the authority because he is Lord of all, because he created everything, because he suffered and died. That's part of why he's in charge also, you see. So Jesus is the authority in the church. He's really the authority in the entire world, but he doesn't enforce that authority. He lets people decide for themselves. But Jesus has all authority. And the third thing is that because Jesus has all authority, he is the leader. Somebody has to lead and others have to follow. That's the way it works. One of the other images about Jesus that we've looked at is Jesus as the Good Shepherd. In the Middle East and in Africa and other places where they still have shepherds and sheep, the shepherd walks out in the front and the sheep follow along behind. The leaders are out front. Jesus is the leader of the church. He is the leader of Christianity. He is the leader of all people who will follow him, who will let him be their leader. Jesus is the leader. Is he your leader? See, that's really the question. A person, it was a young woman, wrote me a few weeks ago and asked me a question about destiny, and destiny being set, and it was related to fate and all that sort of stuff. And I wrote back to her and I reminded her that, human beings have free will. We are self-determined. God doesn't control us in the sense that he makes us do this or makes us do that, or decides that we will go in this direction and we will not go in that direction, or whatever. It doesn't work that way. Part of being created in the image of God is that we are fully self-determined. See, nobody controls us. We choose. We choose. We choose to be good. We choose to be bad. We choose to go this way or we choose to go that way. We choose to do this or we choose to do that. We are free to choose. We determine our own direction in life because we are self-determined. Okay? We don't have to follow anybody. So that's the thing about the kind of authority that Jesus has and the kind of leader he is. He has all authority. But because God created us as self-determined people, he decreed that we get to choose what we will do. Some people choose to ignore God, to just act like he didn't exist. Some will go so far as to say he doesn't exist. Well, You don't have to follow anyone. But if you don't follow people, if you don't follow somebody who knows the way, you're likely not to get to where you want to go. You're likely just to wander around, stumbling in the darkness, not getting anywhere any good. But if you follow the leader, and Jesus is a leader who knows the way. In fact, that's one of the first videos that we made, Jesus as the way, right? He told his disciples, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except through me. Do you want to know the way to get to God? Then you have to follow the leader, Jesus. You want to, find your way to a good life? Then you have to follow the leader. All right? It's a simple idea, but it's very hard to do because we're self-determined and because we're kind of selfish and we like to do what we want to do, the way we want to do it, when we want to do it, how we want to do it. Everything is about, me, me, me. I want this, I want that. That's kind of the way we are, right? We're selfish people. And so really putting ourself aside so that we can follow the leader, so that we can acknowledge the authority of Jesus, so that we can enjoy a good relationship with him, is sometimes a challenge. It's not always that easy to do. But if we'll follow the leader, he'll lead us into good things, to good places. Things will be good for us. So what do you do with Jesus as the head of the church? Do you have a relationship with him that you enjoy, that you look forward to, that you relish, that helps you have a better life? Do you acknowledge his authority? Do you follow his leadership? All of those things are important considerations in your relationship with Jesus. So, as you think about those things, read your Bible, pray, go to church, and may God bless.